Record turnouts for Minnesota, for Bernie Sanders in Minnesota. MSNBC to host their own unsanctioned Democratic debate. Trump won't debate on Fox News so long as Megyn Kelly moderates. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show. You see, I'm struggling already, but let's do this.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show, ladies and gentlemen. Really, so what had happened was there is so much going on in the news that I have like 8 leads. And I said to myself, I'm not going to say them all. But then when I started the show, I started to say them all. So I didn't even read the ones that were the most important for today. But I digress. Not important. What's important is what happens after this point. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, January 26, 2016. Thank you so much for joining us. We endorse Bernie is trending on Twitter. And I don't even have that in my notes, but I got a chance to participate in that. And you know what? It felt pretty good. You know, it really, let's be real. Everybody has a favored candidate. Or maybe not. Maybe you're not going to participate in this election. Maybe you think the intellectual thing to do is to not participate in this election because of whatever, because of all political parties representing the military industrial complex, representing neoliberal economic paradigm, the neoliberal economic paradigm, or perhaps you think that either party or because there's no black person running that they both represent white supremacy. I don't really care about all that. What I care about is that there is somebody running in this election that I think represents my values. And so I had a chance to participate in the contributing to the trending of We Endorse Bernie. You know, one of the things, the observations that I think is really something to that's worthwhile talking about, right? You know, side note, let me go tangentially. I'm going to give the news as I see it, even if it's not pro-Bernie news, even if it actually is pro-Hillary news or pro-Martin O'Malley news, or hell, let's say one day a Republican manages to do the right thing, I may even say something good about them. Now, that disclaimer notwithstanding, the thing that I liked most about the We Are Bernie, not We Are Bernie, but We Endorse Bernie hashtag is that the truth of the matter is, who is really sitting around waiting on a newspaper endorsement anymore or a television network endorsement anymore, right? I know it's a big deal for the Des Moines Register to decide, okay, we're going to endorse Bernie Sanders, or they endorsed Hillary Clinton. I know it's a big deal if people want to know who the New York Times is going to endorse. But in reality, it's only a big deal for those organizations and people who are more loyal to those organizations than they are truth, justice, and what's best for democracy, right? Because in reality, nobody is sitting around wondering, man, I'm really going to make my decision based on what the New York Times, who they endorse. Now, let's not get it twisted. I think any candidate would be elated to get an endorsement from any organization, right? Whether it be a media outlet, whether it be a union, whoever, whatever, however, endorsements are nice to have. But what's more important is to have the endorsement of the people. And that's what you see happening on social media. You see really with the democratization of media in general, meaning that there are no longer, even though it's kind of, this is an interesting observation that someone should do a study on. We have the consolidation of media outlets. And at the same time, we have such an open opportunity for media to be democratized. So at the same time, you have like 5 major corporations that own all of the major news outlets, and those endorsements are pretty much bought and sold to whichever candidate is going to represent their best interest the most. At the same time, you have so many, countless, like I can't even tell you how many small media outlets there are, online news, video, blogs, different organizations that really control the pulse of the grassroots part of America. and control is the wrong word, but they really represent the grassroots. And so really, if you want to know what matters most, it's not who the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, it's not who they endorse. It's really who these small organizations that people really do listen to and they interact with. Who do they endorse? So we endorse Bernie. I think it was pretty cool. I think it may have peaked out at number 3 globally. I don't have that stat. I think I caught it when it was at number 4 and it was still trending upwards. And then some other news came in and I think it started trending downwards. So hashtag we endorse Bernie. Tell them why. And if you don't, tell them why, just hashtag we endorse Bernie. So anyway, that was for free. That was not on my list of things to talk about tonight. I really want to talk about a lot of things, 2 things that I missed yesterday because of the Democratic Forum. In hindsight, I shouldn't have missed it because the forum wasn't that groundbreaking. But anyway, yesterday, they went to court thinking Planned Parenthood would be indicted, and they left with an indictment themselves. Like, how do you go to court thinking someone else is going to be indicted and then you're behind and gets indicted? I wanted to talk about this yesterday and I missed it because of the forum, but the 2 organizers for Center for Medical Progress, David, I can't pronounce his last name. What's his last name? Somebody. Daladin. Let's just call him David Daladin, 27-year-old, and Sandra Merritt, 62-year-old. They are representatives and of leaders of the Center for Medical Progress, which is the greatest misnomer, right, that we've ever seen. The Center for Medical Progress is the organization that put together the videos, the videos of the alleged sale of baby parts, for which the gunman now which city was this? Because there's so many shootings, so many examples. Somewhere in the Midwest, the shooting that took place over the holidays where he killed 3 people at a Planned Parenthood facility, he cited no more baby parts. That's not what they were indicted for, but it just shows you how malicious these lies can evolve and take root in the minds of people, and move them into action. But anyway, they went to court yesterday thinking that Planned Parenthood was going to be indicted. And lo and behold, they walked out with indictments for tampering with a governmental record, which is punishable by 20 years in prison. And both of them were charged with that because they falsified driver's licenses so that they could infiltrate Planned Parenthood and set up these sting videos, edited the videos such that they looked like Planned Parenthood was profiting and selling baby parts for profit, rather. And so now they have been charged with tampering with the governmental record. 20 years in prison is the maximum. And Daladin, whatever, was also indicted on a misdemeanor count regarding purchasing human organs. So he committed a felony trying to capture or to catch Planned Parenthood doing something illegal. Reminds me of that other guy who did the sting operation against Hillary Clinton, trying to force them or trying to catch Hillary Clinton's campaign selling or receiving illegal funds from funds for a fundraiser from a foreigner. A lot of F's in that. And in their effort to make Hillary Clinton's campaign do something illegal, they actually did something illegal themselves. That's the idiocy of conservatism. And so now these 2 from the Center for Medical Progress, they are now faced with charges of their own, and Planned Parenthood has been cleared of any wrongdoing, which most everyone with any modicum of sense knew all along, that Planned Parenthood did not do anything illegal in those videos, and the videos were so highly edited. So that was good news coming out of Texas, Texas of all places, right? Like if you can't get away with the conservative conspiracy in Texas, 1, you're incompetent, and 2, you're an idiot. So congratulations to those 2. it should be. I hope they get the full extent of the law, the full punishment here, because their words, not to mention the words of Carly Fiorina and other Republican candidates, but their words really contributed to the deaths of those Robert Deere's now in the name. It came back to me. Robert Deere killing those three people. One was an ex-vet, one was a police officer, and one was a mother. I think all two of the three people killed over the Planned Parenthood shooting over the holidays because of this video and because of the words of Carly Fiorina. Two of the three were parents. So I really hope that they get the full extent, the full punishment for this. And congratulations to Texas for actually, I love you, Texas, but you guys have some, anyway, I love you, Texas. All right. That's the first thing I missed yesterday. The other thing that I missed yesterday was really a huge deal. The juvenile life sentences reached the Supreme Court, and it was originally overturned. The Supreme Court overturned in 2012, October 2012, the ability of our justice system to sentence a juvenile to life. Yesterday, they applied it retroactively. And that's a really great thing, because think about for how long we've been imprisoning minors for, granted crimes they allegedly did commit, gruesome crimes, but we imprison children. I'm thinking of the young man in Florida who was Tate was his last name. Tate was his last name. I was a kid when he got arrested, and he got sentenced to life in prison for he was wrestling with a girl, a 6-year-old girl. He was 12. He was wrestling with a 6-year-old girl and killed her. And he said he accidentally killed her. The prosecution had no mercy on him. They offered him 30 years. He didn't take the 30 years. He went to trial and he was sentenced to life. Now, a lot has happened and transpired since then. He was the sentence was rescinded, and he got, there's a lot of things that happened after that. But the point is, when you are 13 years old and you're faced with a life sentence, how does that even calculate? How does a child process that their life, which has not begun in earnest, is now over? That's number one. But number two is, how do we do that as a society? How did we do this for so long? Why was this ever acceptable? Which brings me to the other thing that I missed yesterday, which was President Obama banning solitary confinement for juveniles. Like, seriously, why was that ever a thing? Why was it okay? Why did anyone in America feel that it was okay to give a life sentence to a juvenile, to a child, to children? And arguably, we had the conversation with the Progressive Army a few weeks ago, deciding, or questioning, when is a person actually an adult? Because we push, if you're 15, there's a good chance you're going to be tried as an adult. If you're 17, you're sure as hell going to be tried as an adult. 18, forget about it. You're a full-fledged adult. But then we're also talking about this being applied to people who are 12 years old. And so why was it ever okay in our American history of us trying to be civilized, right? Let's forget about the I think it was a 11-year-old boy that they executed, 11-year-old black boy that they executed in the electric chair because they thought he raped to a white girl, right? Let's forget about our barbaric past for a minute. We won't forget about it long, but let's just talk about this quote unquote civilized period where we have been imprisoning for life 12-year-olds for crimes. And not only that, but while they're in jail, federal prison, they were placed in solitary confinement. There is a real problem with our criminal justice system and what we allow to go on and what we allow to be done, not only to adults, but damn it, to children. And I think even in Pennsylvania, where it went as far as a judge selling convictions of juveniles to for-profit prisons, because the for-profit prisons needed to be able to fill up the beds, and they were throwing kickbacks to the judges. Like, if you don't have a modicum of compassion for children and the mistakes and the things that they do, like every mistake is not something that is unintentional, right? Committing a crime at a certain age, knowingly and willingly, when you're a child, that's still a mistake. And now having that mistake lead to not only a life sentence, which is now over, thankfully, but also leading to you could possibly be locked up in solitary confinement as a child. I'm just wondering, why was any of this ever a thing in our civilized history? Or maybe the problem is that we never really been civilized in America. We do some barbaric shit from time to time, and we do it to our own children. And if you do it to our children, right, Kent State, if we do things to children, then what do you expect them to do to grown adults? So that's an indictment against the United States of America, that this has ever been a thing in the first place. But thankfully, President Obama banned it on the federal level. He can't do anything on the state level. So on a state by state level, it might actually still be happening. And the Supreme Court has now retroactively applied life sentences to minors. That has they can now appeal those life sentences. All right. Those are the things that were really big in the news yesterday that we missed, and I definitely wanted to go over for you guys. Let me talk about the debate drama. So there's a lot of debate drama coming up. There's a Thursday night debate, the last Republican debate before the Iowa caucuses next week. If you're from Iowa and you're not registered to vote, I think it may be too late. I'm really not sure about the rules in Iowa. I'm sure somebody's Googling that now for me and send it to me at the BPD show. But anyway, if you are registered and you're going to participate, there is a debate on Thursday rather, for Fox News. And Donald Trump has said that so long as Megyn Kelly is the moderator, he's not going to participate. And so he's pulled his name. I think he's saying it's a done deal. He's not going to participate in the debate on tomorrow night. And so what's interesting about this to me, besides Donald Trump's bombosity, is the fact that this really may hurt the ratings for Fox News. Now, you know, it could backfire on Trump. It could turn out to be the highest rated watched iteration of the debates, because people want to see how this is going to play out with Trump missing, or how they are going to attack Trump. Something tells me Trump is really not going to live up to this, that he might show up. Somebody's going to cave in, and Trump is going to show up, because I can't imagine him the week before Iowa not participating and leaving, really giving room for a less idiotic Republican debate. Not a fully mature adult conversation, but just one that is less idiotic. And then it will give Republicans a chance to see what a stage of less stupidity actually looks like. So that might backfire on Donald Trump, number one. Number two, it could backfire because it would people would want to see how everyone else performs in the absence, in his absence, and people would want to see if the remaining clowns actually attack Bernie Sanders. God, the remaining clowns attack Donald Trump. So you know, it's a good publicity stunt for today, but tomorrow it very well backfire. That's on the Republican end. The good news, in my opinion, great news, is that MSNBC and a New Hampshire newspaper has decided that they would host their own unsanctioned Democratic debate. I want to give an applause to Fox News and the New Hampshire Union leader for one, just being bold enough to actually buck the system. This pathetic debate schedule that we have had, the timing, the nights, just everything about it has been ridiculous on the side of left-leaning progressives, liberals, and Democrats. MSNBC probably just doing it for ratings, right? I'm sure they don't give a damn about what, the actual conversation, because, they'll just as soon play a Donald Trump rally over a Bernie Sanders or Martin O'Malley rally any day. So I'm not thinking that they're doing this out of the sincerity of their heart. They're doing it for ratings. Well, this is one time I think being selfish and doing something for ratings is actually going to be beneficial to democracy, right? So Martin O'Malley is the only one who has signed on. It will be interesting to see how this plays out, because MSNBC is going to be hosted by Rachel Maddow and Chuck Todd. So there's going to be people watching. And if it's a debate of one, then it's going to be a great opportunity for Martin O'Malley to participate, to get the attention of the entire United States by himself. I don't know how this is going to play out. But I think it is great that they are bucking the system, kicking back against Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her just unapologetic sandbagging of this competition, to the extent where it's so blatantly obvious that it's insulting that they're even trying to pretend that this is not biased. And then she came out, 2 weeks ago, and said that she tried the very best she could to make this the most rigorous debate and most well-watched debate season, and she just doesn't know what happened. So here to MSNBC, to the New Hampshire union leader for doing this. Now, there are penalties for this if anyone participates. Martin O'Malley has essentially said he's got nothing to lose. So he's already signed up for this, because when you're at 1%, like 3%, what do you have to lose? So he signed up for it. But anyone who participates in an unsanctioned Democratic debate will be banned from participating in a sanctioned debate. I think it would be good on all three of the remaining Democratic candidates to say, you know what, the people want this. Even if the establishment doesn't want this, the people want this. And I think it would be a really good look, because to hell with the establishment at this point and the foolishness that they pulled last night. I documented through some tweets this morning how last night was nothing but a love fest for Hillary Clinton. That's it. That's all last night was really about. When you saw the headlines this morning, right? The headlines this morning, CNN declared that Hillary Clinton got a bump, but they did so by showing a Fox News poll, which had her up by 6 points, instead of showing their own poll, which had Bernie Sanders up by 8 points. And the average of all the polls showing that it was a statistical dead heat in Iowa. But that wasn't the purpose of last night. The purpose of the forum last night was really just to give Hillary Clinton the last word and the easiest questions for Iowa. And I'm sorry, you could disagree with me all you want. It's so patently obvious. This was an unplanned event that popped up at the last second. And if you look at the polls in Iowa and you saw how the polls converged from like a 30-point lead, and I don't have it in front of me, so it could have very well have been 20 points, but whatever. Bernie Sanders closed an amazing gap. And then all of a sudden, once this gap closed, Debbie Wasserman Schultz says, we need to have another forum. They have another forum. In the middle of the forum, they misconstrue everything Bernie Sanders said for 45 minutes and put out a headline saying Bernie Sanders is going to raise taxes. That's all they took from the entire time he spoke. Then afterwards, they began to talk about Hillary Clinton having a great night. The next morning, they talk about Hillary Clinton getting this 6-point bump, according to Fox News, completely ignoring their own poll showing that Bernie Sanders was up by 8 points. So good on MSNBC. Good on MSNBC, because in light of all of that, in light of all of the foolishness surrounding this, somebody needs to do something to help the Democratic establishment understand that even though you are in power, you do not control us. And so I'm hoping Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton would join in on this unsanctioned debate. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, or question?
Hey, Ben, it's Solomon. I was just calling in about the news of that new debate being scheduled. It's very surprising to me. And then I saw a couple articles that came in after it about how Hillary Clinton had her campaign started sending out things saying that they would go, while Bernie said campaign said they would not, and that confused me for a
Mm-hmm.
second as to why they would say that. And then I saw this other one from the Hill
Right.
titled "DNC throws cold water on unsanctioned debate in New Hampshire," saying where the Hillary Clinton campaign clarified that both they and the Sanders campaign would both wait for the DNC to sanction them going. And so it's really on the DNC's hands to just give up this stupid exclusivity rule so that they can go. Because of course Martin O'Malley's going to go no matter what.
Right.
But for them to go, they both. It seems like neither of them really trust the DNC enough to just let them go and then still let them in the sanction debate, especially Bernie after his relationship with the DNC. So.
Of course they okay. I'm looking up this article now that you just mentioned. Just came out 2 hours ago. The Democratic National Committee says it is unlikely to sanction additional debates before the New Hampshire primary, a decision that could strike a blow to the attempts by MSNBC and the New Hampshire union leader to host a debate next week. Listen, I think the MSNBC and the New Hampshire union leader, I think they're still going to do something next week that's going to be reminiscent of a debate, and it's going to look bad on whoever's not there, because everyone is going to be tuned in. Because I think the campaigns need to understand something, that this is not just about your campaign. This is about the fact that Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the Democratic National Committee has stifled a national conversation for their own personal benefit. And that's the problem, that this is bigger than Bernie Sanders' campaign, even though this is going to be very beneficial to him if he does show up. So I think that they should, let's see how this plays out. But I think they'll be foolish not to go. Yep. All right, Solomon, thanks so much for the call, man.
No problem.
All right. So there's a lot of debate drama between Fox News, Donald Trump, MSNBC, and left-leaning liberals, progressives, Democrats, however you self-identify. Let me just jump in the chat room over here on YouTube. I want to see some comments or questions that are brewing here before we move on to the next section. John Stewart Frank in Spreaker said, Clinton is so far down in New Hampshire and now they want to debate. Well, so you know what? That's an interesting spin on it, right? Maybe that's why Hillary Clinton's team. Let's back up. That's a good point, because who really stands to benefit the most out of this? Probably Hillary Clinton. And so if Hillary Clinton, that's why she probably was the first one, according to the caller, said that she would, or the second one to say that she would participate. And then it would be just like the DNC to come back after the fact and say they're going to sanction it. You know what? The problem is everything is just too transparent now. It's too obvious. It's too obvious that it's really the establishment trying to hold a grip, a stranglehold on the general public, the population, us, we the people. All right, let's read a couple of questions here from. All right, there's some breaking news. Amon Bundy finally arrested. 3 people shot. Let me confirm these. Some of the stuff that I see that's breaking on Amon Bundy arrested. While I do some research on that during the middle of the show, I want to cover a couple of more things. Bernie Sanders is in Minnesota. He's there with Representative Ellison, the 5th district of Minnesota. This is what we were talking about earlier. When you talk about the voice of the people, the masses, we the people, 15,000 people showed up. 20,000 people showed up to a St. Paul River Center. 5,000 had to go into an overflow. 15,000 filled the room to capacity. And one thing, really good, something that Keith Ellison said that I liked, that I think is very, very true, that you don't have to drag Bernie Sanders into a fight. He leads the fight. And that's one of the biggest differences that we're seeing emerge between the two candidates. So in Minnesota, he's had this record turnout in the dead of winter, 15,000 people inside, 5,000 in an overflow room. People are showing up all over the country for Bernie Sanders, marches all over the country last week for Bernie Sanders. Just a very strong presence. And the establishment is trying to tell us that he doesn't stand a chance. It really doesn't add up, right? This is part of the same coalition that propelled President Obama into the White House, Senator Obama into the White House, right? It is the progressive movement. And this is something people really don't understand, is that, this energy is not for just a Democrat. This energy can be completely separated from the Democratic Party. And that's why the Democratic establishment is losing their minds. For the last 30 plus years, the Democratic establishment has gotten closer and closer and closer to all of the things that are antithetical to progressives. And now they want to squash this energy around Bernie Sanders because they can't control that energy, because that energy, that progressive energy that shows up in the dead of winter, 15,000 people, 20,000 people trying to get into a 15,000 seat capacity building for Bernie Sanders. And they're trying to tell us that this is not the momentum, that he cannot win. They're trying to tell us that because they can't control the progressive movement. This is, and I see like 1,000 things just went through my head right there. If you look online at all of the negativity that's thrown towards people who tend to support Bernie Sanders, and you look back at 2008, this is some of the same rhetoric, some of the same people who threw the same hatred towards President Obama, saying that he can't win in a general election, saying that it's just an idealistic movement and it's not realistic. Paul Krugman, whatever the hell you want to call him, said some of the same things about President Obama that he's saying about Bernie Sanders right now. No, Bernie Sanders is not President Obama. He's actually more progressive than President Obama. And that's what's driving Debbie Wasserman Schultz and all of the rest of the Democratic establishment, the Democratic black elite, all of the people who are power players. They are going crazy because how many people are showing up to Hillary Clinton rallies right now? What, maybe 5,000, 7,000. I'm sure she had a good day somewhere where she probably had 15,000. But Bernie Sanders, hang on, let me start that sentence again, because it's not just Bernie Sanders. Progressivism, that is what pulls 20,000 people out in Minnesota in the dead of winter. That's what gets 7,000 people in Alabama, the reddest of red states. It's progressivism. It's because people really believe in the progressive values to move America forward, and they've been placated long enough, they've been patient long enough, and they've been waiting on a real progressive to come. Every 8 years, every 4 years, 8 years, we look for a real progressive. And it's not that we're waiting on some type of messiah, it's that we're just waiting for this damn party to be what it at least used to be. And this is the weird world in which we live. God, that was a lot of W's. Weird world in which we live. We live in the world where Bernie Sanders is considered a radical, when in actuality, he's probably the most conservative person running right now, because he's hearkening back to a time when America was actually progressive. The idiots that are running on the right, they are extremists. They are radicals. They are not left radicals. They are just right-wing radicals. They want to move us further down the drain of trickle-down economics. They want to further our militaristic exploits. They are the radicals. And somehow we've got this conflated in our minds in America that being radical is a left-leaning, kumbaya type of tree-hugging liberal. No, radicalism is further exposing us to global factors without any protection. Radicalism is saying labor doesn't mean anything. Let's gut all of the labor unions and leave individual workers exposed to the power of major corporations. Radicalism is saying that we need to do more in the Middle East. We need to be more interventionist. We need to put more troops on the ground. That is radicalism. Even what we're doing, and I have to parse this very, very clearly, and I want you to hear this argument very clearly. Even what we are currently doing is not truly conservative. The trajectory that we've been on for the last 35 years has been a trajectory of right-wing radicalism. And President Obama, God bless him, love him, but President Obama has not done enough to shift us back to some fundamental values that made America great. And when I say made America great, I am fully aware that I'm talking about a time in which Black people could not participate in this greatness. So now we have an opportunity in America to say, let's redo the greatness that Black people were left out of in the first place and make it accessible to everybody. Now, how good would that shit be? How good would that be if the New Deal, the new Deal would actually be something that everybody can benefit from? Right. I mean, and I only throw that out there for all of these intentionally obtuse, mindless drones who see white supremacy in everything and can't even watch the damn Walking Dead because of the white supremacist overtones in that show. Right. I'm talking about people like that. Right. But it's not that I am hearkening back to a time that was unrealistic. I'm hearkening back to a time that was very successful for the average middle class white American. We can fix that to be very successful today for the average middle class and working class American, regardless of race. And so with that in mind, you have to understand that Bernie Sanders is not the radical in this fight. Bernie Sanders is really the conservative in this fight because he's trying to get us back to a time where we were actually successful. Let me take this caller. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, business Bryce, what's going on?
And Bryce, what's on your mind?
Well, just a quick 2 points, won't be long. I totally agree with what you're saying about. Okay, I totally agree with you about Bernie. You know, they definitely trying to do whatever it takes to stop him, but I still think he's going to win. Yeah, they did say they were Obama, but you know, obviously he was able to win. I'm also happy that Obama is doing a lot with the criminal situation. You know, taking care of some of these things. I think that's very important. That thank God he's not getting blocked. So he's able to get that done. But our main point in question I want you to answer. I know yesterday you were going off, and even a couple nights ago about, I guess I'll say this: the Black Power community that sees white supremacy and we shouldn't vote, we shouldn't do this, and we got to do this and do that. And like I said, I understand our history and everything, but when you have people when you have people like Bernie Sanders that want to fight and have been fighting to bring these type of changes, for us just to push it aside or just to fight against it, I just don't understand it. It just mind blows me. I just don't understand it because not all of white America, as people would say, is racist. Not all white people hate us. There are people that do, want to help or want to, fight for us. The people that marched with us back in the 60s and things. You got the John Stewart, the Tim Watts of the world that attack and fight, in a sense, things. And I just don't understand. I mean, I guess I know you went on a rant before, but
no. Actually, it's right in line. Is right in line in what I'm talking about. And actually, let me clear up the lines. Thanks so much for the call, and I'm going to expound on what you just said.
Gotcha.
Really to close out what I was saying last and about what the caller just mentioned. There's this tendency in Black circles to let me be specific. There's a very vocal segment of the Black empowerment community that would consider me a sellout because I don't think all white people are evil. And I don't see white supremacy behind every tree. Or rather, I do see white supremacy probably behind every tree, but I don't let that control me, right? There's this contingency in the Black Power movement, not just the Black Power movement, but the Black empowerment movement that really will encourage a lot of their voters, a lot of the people that they have influence over, their followers, to not participate in this political system because this entire system is a white supremacist system. Just really simply put, they're not idiots in the sense that they're not intelligent, because some of them are very intelligent. They're idiots in the application of their intelligence. You could be very smart and be dumb as hell at the same time, right? They're applying, they live and exist in this world. They work next to white people every single day. They live in neighborhoods next to white people every single day, and yet they get behind their computers in their home and they run down this hyper pseudo intellectual militaristic complex in which they are attacking any type of cooperation and integration and working with white people. I don't really have time for that type of crowd, because I think it is intelligence gone awry. And I think it's very detrimental, because it ultimately, the reason I think it's the most detrimental is because it leads to conversations about not participating in our political system. And there's no way, there's no component of your life, no facet of your life that is not shaped and molded by our political system. So to disenfranchise yourself is one of the most imbecilic things you could possibly do, because you're giving complete control without any say whatsoever about your future. You're turning it over because you don't think, I guess you don't think the system, I don't know the justification. Not that I want to, I know them. I just don't want to go over them again. Instead of organizing, right? Instead of mobilizing, organizing, and solidifying their political capital, they opt out and just go to their little conferences and stuff and talk to each other and be angry all the time. But that's not what today's show is about. But Bryce, good point, good observation. I want to circle back really quick and talk about Armand Bondi. I found a little bit of information. Basically, the leader of the Oregon occupation has been arrested along with 8 other people. This is out of KATU News in Harney County, Oregon, that they have learned that the leader of the armed occupation at the Moeller Wildlife Refuge has been arrested along with 8 others. Officials said it all began with a traffic stop while Bundy and some of his followers were en route to a community meeting at John Day, which was 70 miles away. So they were en route and they got stopped by the FBI. Shots were fired, and Oregon state troopers and other law enforcement agencies made the stop. It is unclear right now, according to this particular source, who shot first. So that means that shots were exchanged. Gunfire was exchanged, and Bundy and about 3 dozen of other individuals are still in their 25-day takeover at the wildlife refuge. This is just really a great example of angry white conservative men needing something to protest over. Not all of the men there are wealthy, but Armand Bundy is a wealthy individual compared to most other Americans, right? Matter of fact, he's probably definitely in the top 10% of income brackets on some of the reports that I read. He makes, and granted, top 10% of the income brackets, because so many Americans don't make any money. Really, it's like over 150,000, 200,000 really puts you in the top 10%. It's a long way from the top 10% to the top 1%, but that's not the argument. What I'm saying is that Armand Bundy is over there trying to lead an armed rebellion, and he is a wealthy individual, owns a lot of land, owns businesses, and he's angry over what? I guess when you have everything you need to make up something to be angry about. And so he got a lot of other people, some of which were very poor, right? Some of these armed militia men are very poor. So it's a great example of people with wealth manipulating people who are poor to come and take on their anger at the government for not giving them everything that they wanted, while these poor people who are there with their guns are really in need of food stamps, but they're there protesting and following the leadership of Amon Bundy because he's angry over certain things that he did not get from the government, i.e. free grazing privileges. So anyway, the point is he's been arrested with 8 other people, and there was a shootout with the FBI. So these guys are actually, you know, depending on who was shot, these guys are probably going to go away for a while. So this should mark the end of the armed occupation, unless the remaining imbeciles at the Mueller Wildlife Refuge decide to dig in and to double down and make this their Waterloo. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
This is Zuma from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn's in the house. What's happening, man?
How's it going?
It's going great, man. What's on your mind?
Wow, you said a lot, but actually, you said a lot. Anyway, I think it's a good thing those guys are finally are being arrested, and I'm glad that Planned Parenthood. Okay, it was a weird M. Night Shyamalan victory, but
yeah.
Okay, I'll go with that.
We'll take it.
But I want to address to you as a former Black revolutionary, don't work with the white man, the system doesn't work, don't go person.
Speak on it.
Okay? All right. This is something I've addressed to you every time I call it. Here's basically how I see what happens. Let's say someone like you. You start laying out what the Black intelligentsia or what the Democrats are doing, how they slide into the conservative party. I remember a particular angry moment when it was up in the air whether George Bush had won that first term, and then it got decided by his brother in his
Florida.
state, blah, blah, blah. So, when you know, and at some point, I'm going to do something about this voter apathy thing, because I think everybody keeps looking at it from two wrong directions. Because let's go with your question. Why would they make this kind of argument? And I would go to, believe it or not, a John Cleese quote.
Okay.
When I was a kid, he said in his biography, everything was funny. Everything. Then you get to a certain age, you realize how nothing changes, how progress is uphill, and everything stops being funny right then and there. So when everyone keeps laying out exactly how corrupt the system is, exactly how problematic it is. I mean, you look up, Trump should be a joke.
Right.
Alonzo Bolton, of all people, said it right. You think that when he first announcement, everybody would go, that's funny, Trump. And now look where we're at. And so it can't be this much of a shock that people on any, whether it be the poor white people who feel this way, the Black revolutionists who feel this way, or even radical feminists who feel this way. What is the point? Jeez. And because this is overwhelming, it's big. It has so many facets. And this is where I come back to the dumb it down factor. You guys can't keep laying out how bad it is and go, but participate. It's awful. The Democrats are not doing right.
But let me ask you something right there, because I've heard you make this argument several times, and part of me agrees with you. But I guess for me, when you see how bad it really is, that's all the more reason for you to double down and participate more. Because if you just lay down, I guess for me, my life has never been one where if I see something that's a challenge, that it makes me want to lay down and not participate, right? Because if that was the case, then there's no way in the world I would expend this kind of energy every single night fighting against what I see as the actual problem. But you're right in that the actual problem is so deeply rooted, very complex, that perhaps it can scare people away, and not even scare them away as much as make them feel disheartened. And I think the whole concept behind the Progressive Army is to not be disheartened by the challenge, but let the challenge drive you to fight even more. Like, this system is our system, screwed up as it may be. We have the ability to change it if we organize ourselves and we fight like hell. So to me, it's like, I guess I don't understand not wanting to fight the bigger fight. That's the only thing I disagree, or that's the only way where I part ways with you.
Okay. But then we have to come back to the major mistake the Democrats made during the last midterms, not owning up to their wins. To run away from Obama the way they did, would mean that you have to run away from your wins. Because every win a Democrat could cite basically comes on the heels of the stuff that Obama did. Now, I'm not saying that anyone's wrong about what he couldn't do, what he should do. I think everybody has a point with that. It's a president, and you're allowed to tell your elected officials what you believe they shouldn't do. But my point is that this is one of those other things that happen with progressives. We are so focused on the problem, we forgot how we won. When you lay out all the hard parts, especially for the common people, and I'm not trying to say unintelligent, I'm just saying people who do not
have time for all this nuance, be honest with you.
It doesn't have time for the nuance. What makes Martin and Malcolm and Stokely and all those people go orators, because they can lay it out quick. And this is the problem. Here's what we can do. When the Montgomery bus boycott happened, there wasn't all this examination, and Lord knows. See, this is what turns me around. I do not have it that hard. I was not back at a bus, to be honest with you, except for during protests. I've never been set upon by police or set up by police or beat up by police. I mean, I've met jerks.
Right.
That does not mean it didn't happen. But I'm saying we have this. It's like with the Bernie thing. Okay, let's listen to both sides. Why? Give me one reason why Bernie can win. That's the only message we should be pumping. Instead, we're like, well, okay, Bernie can win, but if we have to go with Hillary, and you know how disheartening that is for the common person. They want Bernie. And they want, look what the Democrats and the Tea Party does. They don't care if their candidate could win or lose. They pump them and pump them and pump them. Our whole thing is, here's the problem. We're going to take 3 hours to lay it out. Then 2 minutes to go, okay, we can solve it. And it's like showing a bunch of children the worst horror movies at all. They say, don't be scared of monsters. While they're sitting there shaking in their seats going, what?
That's a good one. That's a good analogy. And I hear you. I appreciate the call. I got to get this next one, but I'm gonna give a little more commentary on what you just said. So I appreciate it. To really, I get it. Right. I do get it. Umar from Brooklyn. I definitely get it. But to me, see, I think for me, we lay this out for an hour and a half, maybe not 2 hours tonight, but an hour and a half. And we do lay out the complexities of it, because I think that there's a very large contingent of progressives that really appreciate the nuance and need the nuance and need to be able to dissect something down. Here's the other thing. In a competition of sound bites, we've been losing. In a competition of propaganda, well, not even competition, but in a world of propaganda, progressive ideas have been losing. We've really been on the retreat in terms of actual policy, in terms of actually shaping America. For instance, case in point, when Obama was running for president, the entire conversation became about the fear of socialism. Is he a socialist? And because socialism was used as a pejorative, as a soundbite, it was a very effective way of stifling any type of progressive effort. But to me, it wasn't until we unpacked the reality of socialism that we had the tools necessary to very quickly say socialism isn't a bad thing. We actually have had socialism in America for a very long time. If you look at the post office, if you look at the military, if you look at any type of redistribution of wealth for the purposes of the common good, that's socialism. That's a form of socialism. That's not extreme socialism. This is not giving, you have to understand the problem to be able to water down and synthesize it into very quick sound bites that debunks their propaganda. So we this is why I call it the Progressive Army, is because we have a hell of a job on our hands. We have to take, because we're coming from a defensive position, first of all. Eventually, we will get on the offensive. But because progressives have been on the defensive for a very long time, we have to take all of the 35 years worth of lies and propaganda. And caller, please call back. Sorry, I missed you. Years of lies and propaganda. And we have to unpack it, debunk it intelligently, and then synthesize it into 140 characters. That is a hell of a job. But that's what we do at the Progressive Army, right? And so this is really just a strategy session. This is just really a reconnaissance mission for us to understand the problem, right? It's intelligence gathering. We're gathered here today to dissect the problem as succinctly as we can. Our job, every one of us, every one of you listening, every one of you who consider yourself a part of the Progressive Army, whether even if it's just on Twitter, our job is to synthesize the solutions and the truth as succinctly as possible. Can you put a diatribe, a book's worth of knowledge into 140 characters? That's the even more difficult part, because we are living in a world of headlines, 140 characters, and sound bites. But we've been losing that war. And we've been losing that war because we have not unpacked their propaganda, debunked their propaganda, and we haven't done so in a way that is synthesizable. And I think that's kind of what we do here at the Progressive Army, is that at the Benjamin Dixon Show and the Progressive Army, is that we take their lies, we unravel them. We can do it at length if necessary, but then we also are going to give you some sound bites. For instance, my tweet of why we support Bernie, why we endorse Bernie, it's because socialism has worked really good for corporate America. It's time for it to work for the average American now. All right, let's move on. Let's see. We did Amon Bundy. That was bonus. Salon.com. I've got to talk about this article because I called this dude out on Twitter and he went silent. So I'm going to call you out on video. John Avignon, whatever. John from Salon.com. His last name is spelled Avignone. No idea how to pronounce it. Avignon, whatever. John said he has had it with naive Bernie Sanders idealists. And he went on a diatribe for about, about 12 paragraphs, 11, 12 paragraphs, basically saying that the idealism of Bernie Sanders and his supporters and the desire for Bernie Sanders and his supporters to go after real progressivism is naive, and that it is problematic, and essentially that we don't know what the hell we're doing because we're going after what we consider to be true progressive values and positions and policies. Let me read a little snapshot of what he had to say. Matter of fact, I'll read his last paragraph so you can hear it in his own words before I continue. Human attitudes, and there is no more elemental attitude than politics, cannot be defined as simply as darkness or the light. We've tried this again and again, and it never ends well. The Democratic contest isn't a battle of good against evil. Hillary Clinton isn't the evil agent of the powers of greed and darkness, and Bernie Sanders isn't an avenging angel or a pious saint. This is a political campaign, and they are both professional politicians. While both candidates seek to highlight their differences, they have far more in common with each other than either of them does with the extremists and the often dangerous position of the Republican contenders. Politics is at the heart of politics is the art of the possible, not the perfect. One candidate embodies the possible. One insists on nothing less than the perfect. Paul Krugman is right. The achievable possible is always preferable to the unachievable perfect. I called this dummy out, and he didn't say anything on Twitter. So this is for you, John. Not only are you naive, but you're a coward. You are a naive coward. And the reason I put coward on it is because this is a position of someone who doesn't want to fight, who doesn't want a hard battle. Think about everything. I'm not even talking to you anymore because I'm talking to the audience. Think about everything that we would never have achieved if we took this attitude that the achievable possible is always preferred. What type of leadership can ever inspire us to move into the future if we only go after what we conceive presently to be the achievable possible? That is cowardice. That is fearful. We would never have made it to the moon because that was an impossible challenge when John F. Kennedy laid it out for America. We never would have had the New Deal. We never would have taken on the Axis powers. We never would have accomplished all the things that we did accomplish if people were as cowardly as John Avignon, whatever the hell his last name is. If people were as cowardly as Hillary Clinton is making her supporters to be. That's number one. Number two, you are naive because you don't understand that if your triangulation and your negotiations start from the center, you will always be pushed further to the right when dealing with absolutists on the right. So you're a coward and you're naive. Why the hell are you writing for an outlet like Salon? I think it shows shame. I think it brings shame to a liberal rag that is already struggling, because you're showing your naivete. We're not saying that Bernie Sanders is going to have to rule as a perfect progressive. What we're saying is that if we don't start negotiating from a left of center position, a strong left position, then we will continue down this right-leaning paradigm that we've been under for the last 40 years. Case in point, every question that was posed by Cuomo last night on that forum was framed in a right-leaning paradigm with the assumption that lowering taxes is going to stimulate economic growth. That is a right-leaning assumption which the data does not bear out. Not when you control for the average business cycle. And so we live in a political paradigm that is right-leaning. It is hard right-leaning. And we've been going in that direction, even with Barack Obama, even with Bill Clinton. They are just center-right in their policies that they get accomplished. They never came from a left position when they started negotiations. So it is naive to want to put somebody in the White House who only wants to get the accomplishable, as perceived by modern politics, done. No, we need to put somebody in the White House that wants to bring progressive values. Start from a progressive position, because Republicans have started from a hard right position for the last 40 years. So far be it for us to think that it is politically astute to put someone in the White House who is going to bring us to a negotiation table with the Congress, with the Senate, with the House of Representatives, and say, this is my starting position. Where are you? And let's find what is truly moderate, not right of center moderate. Naive coward. So if you're tired, John, of the naive Bernie Sanders idealist, I am sick and tired of the imbecilic, naive cowards that are being fostered by this campaign of Hillary Clinton that does not want to do what is right, but wants to do what is easy. Now tweet that. Matter of fact, I'm gonna wrap that up and cut it and special deliver it to your ass. Anyway, moving on. That was actually a bonus one. I didn't get that article. I saw the article this morning and tweeted him, but he didn't respond, and I understand why. What's left on my list? Maybe that's a good place as any to end the show, but there was something else. Oh no, I've got to talk about this. Okay, one more thing, and then I'm gonna leave you alone. B.o.B, the rapper B.o.B. I know him best for, he's got a lot of stuff, but I really love his song with Bruno Mars, Beautiful Girls. One of my favorite songs. I played it and sang it to my wife at my wedding, at the reception or somewhere. Anyway, great song. Idiot guy, idiot dude. He has gotten into into a rap battle, a literal rap battle with Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. When I explain what's going on here, you're going to not really believe it, but it's applicable in a sense of the bigger conversation of politics. So dude is on an airplane, takes a picture, B.o.B takes a picture outside of the airplane and sees that the horizon from his altitude is not curved. The horizon from his altitude is still flat. And so it just clicks in his mind that somehow the world is flat and NASA has been lying to us all this time. This is real. I'm not making this shit up. He decides to go on a Twitter rant with memes and pictures and basically saying this is one big conspiracy, that we've been living on a century's worth of conspiracy, that the world is flat. And of course, a person with the reach of B.o.B clearly has influence on the minds of quite a few individuals. That message started reverberating through the Twitter sphere, such that Neil deGrasse Tyson, world-renowned astrophysicist, had to rein in and pretty much try to educate this young brother and say, no, it's not a conspiracy. We still like your music, but the world is not flat. And then B.o.B, the side notes, footnotes, B.o.B put out a rap single called Flatline, and Neil deGrasse Tyson's nephew put out a single in response. Full disclosure, the beat underneath B.o.B's version is killing. and Neil deGrasse Tyson's nephew is not B.o.B. But the point is, for the love of God, people with influence, people with reach, social reach, I don't care what type of reach, people with influence have the ability to start the most imbecilic beliefs over again. The fact that we're even having a conversation that today we're having, despite all of the satellite imagery, let's forget about the data that was used before we had satellite imagery. Let's just talk about the pictures. Let's talk about the curvature. I mean, the fact that this is even a conversation, let's hope that this is the ultimate troll. Let's hope that this is just B.o.B saying, I've got an album coming out called Flatline and I'm doing some promotions. But the problem is there have been other mainstream artists with a lot of influence, a lot of reach, who have said some of the same imbecilic things. And it just goes to show you that everyone with a platform does not deserve that platform. I mean, for the love of God. I mean, think about it seriously. There's some real implications to people with large platforms starting conversations that we felt were settled. For instance, the anti-vaxxer movement, right? We had an outbreak of measles, right? Which we pretty much could prevent. But because of the reach of people with these arcane beliefs and ideas, they have the ability to start a conversation nationally in earnest that is very detrimental to human progress. I don't even know if there's anything else to say about that. All right, let's see if I covered everything I wanted to cover. Salon.com, record turnouts in Minnesota for Bernie Sanders, MSNBC debate. Trump is not going to debate on Fox News. Planned Parenthood, B.o.B, and juvenile life sentences. I've covered all of my bases. Let me check Twitter and let me check YouTube. Anything good? I see a lot, but I don't see any questions. Yeah. Comments over in Spreaker, just pretty much laughing at B.o.B. And then John Stephen Frank said, no, please don't be flat earthers. Talk about the Evangelical Liberty University president endorsement of Donald Trump as a former Christian. That pisses me off. Motto 337. All right. Model 337 says that they want me to talk about the Evangelical Liberty University president's endorsement of Donald Trump. As a former Christian, this pisses them off. You know, I don't think that should piss you off. Because think about who Jerry Falwell Jr. is. He's the son of Jerry Falwell. Jerry Falwell was the founder of the Moral Majority. The Moral Majority is who brought you Ronald Reagan in 1980, as opposed to Jimmy Carter. The Moral Majority only had two purposes, and that was to oppose abortion and to oppose gay marriage. They aligned with the Republican Party solely for those two purposes. Eventually, it became less and less and less about their religious objections and more about being political establishment players. This new version of the Jerry Falwell Jr., he is nothing more than a Republican shield in a religious position. It doesn't bother me that he's doing this, endorsing Donald Trump, because, you know, in terms of what he represents publicly, Jerry Falwell Jr. is far from a Christian publicly, right? In terms of the things that he espouses. Go back and listen to every time he's introduced a president. He's lauding gun values. He's lauding anti-immigration values, right? He's talking about things that absolutely have nothing to do with religion, with the faith, with Christianity. But he's forwarding them as though they were a part of Christianity. And so it's not a surprise. It shouldn't disappoint you, but I think we just need to awaken more religious people to the reality that they don't even care about the things that they tell you they care about. They don't even care about abortion as much as they say they care about abortion, because if they did, they would recognize that more progressive policies reduce the need for abortion. And they would recognize that 65% of all abortions are performed on Christian patients. They don't really care about that as much as they do gathering and mobilizing a Republican vote. So I'm not surprised by him supporting Donald Trump, because it's about political access for him. He's the president of a major university, and, you know, even religious people, no, not even, especially religious people are ambitious. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if he gets something or if he's expecting something from this nomination, from this endorsement. I can go on and on and on about that, but I think that's it in a nutshell. All right, Progressive Army. This is what I need you to do. I'm going to take Umar's advice to heart, and I want you to take the things that you pick up from listening to the Benjamin Dixon Show, and I want you to synthesize them into actionable sound bites. I want you to make them reduce. I want you to process your head so hard that you take these big, complex things and reduce them down to 140 characters. And when you do that, it becomes an arsenal. Our arsenal becomes truth, and our arsenal becomes succinctness, the ability to just nail them. Tweet after tweet, post after post, conversation after conversation, with very precise language that if you unpack, this is what we have to do. We have to take all of this that we talk about and compress it into 140 characters so that it's not overly complicated. But if you start unpacking it, it becomes like Pandora's box for truth. That's what I need you guys to do. That's what I try to do when I'm online, whenever I'm not being an asshole and just counter trolling somebody. I try my best to pack as much truth into every sentence, and I need you to do the same. So Progressive Army, synthesize everything that you learn, these conversations that you have in the chat room on your own, synthesize them, make it an arsenal that we can unleash for the purposes of moving America forward, but humanity forward. That's number one. Number two, support the Benjamin Dixon Show. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD Show and become a patron. Every dollar counts. I literally can take $1 and probably get $10 out of it because of the efficiencies with which I work, right? You invest in this show, you're going to see the investment come right out of the show. We're going to do bigger, better things. We're going to continue to grow. Thank you for helping us hit 6,000 subscribers on Spreaker. Let me give us the Progressive Army. Let me applaud us for reaching 6,000 on Spreaker in our first year. We reached 5,335 before my 1-year anniversary on YouTube. So thank you for that. We couldn't have done it without you. Now, I'm just crazy enough to believe that we can reach 5,500. Definitely can reach 5,500 before next week. I don't know if we'll reach the 6,000, but let's go for 5,500. So I need like 130, 170 more to do that over on YouTube. We crossed over 3,000 followers on Twitter. It's very slow growth, but it's very meaningful growth. Our reach is growing, and the more you support the Benjamin Dixon Show, the more I'm just going to run into the fight. That's why I identify with what Representative Ellis said about Bernie Sanders, is that you don't ever have to bring Bernie Sanders to the fight. He's leading the fight. That's why I like Bernie Sanders, because you're never going to have to come find me for a fight. I'm probably going to already be there. So if you need that type of, if you want to support that type of thing, go join the Progressive Army at theprogressivearmy.com. Register for our blog. Go to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Register for the blog there and become a patron. I think I have self-promoted sufficiently tonight. I'll see you guys next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Crazy mother.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Okay, folks, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Hold on, announcer, Mr. Announcer.
Becoming a Patreon.
Hold on. I just read a comment in the comment section from Todd Hamlin. He was one of my, I think actually he was my second patron on Patreon. He said, F that. Go for 6,000 subscribers on YouTube. That means, ladies and gentlemen, we have just over a week and a half. Let me get my official anniversary start for you. Let's hang on a second. What the hell? Why not? Let's go to Spreaker, and I need to go back and see my very first episode. And I believe it was February 12th, 2015 for my very first episode. So that gives us a little bit over 2 weeks, actually. So if we have a little bit over 2 weeks, then sure as hell we can get 6,000 subscribers on YouTube. So I'll get you that official date. I don't care. I don't know. I don't want to waste your time anymore, but I like that. I like the spirit effort. Let's go for 6,000 subscribers on YouTube by my 1-year anniversary. You do that for me, and I'm just going to keep fighting for you like I've been fighting on a regular basis. And because I love my closing music so much, by Otis McDonald on Twitter, go check out Otis McDonald. He has great music, and because I love it so much, I'm going to play it again. See you guys next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Crazy mother.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
My first show was February 9th, 2016. So that's our deadline, February 9th, 2016. I'm going for real this time. Take it easy, people.